More dreams. The football transfer market. It was set in a hotel reception area, and I was with two now retired football players who were then in the final stages of their careers. The three of us were trying to conclude transfers. The other players were Wayne Rooney and Nick Barmby, and in the dream it was about the last big career move that we were going to have before we retired. We were in a hurry. It was getting dark and we were walking at a fast pace through the hotel. We were dressed smartly in suits. At the end of the dream, I was the only one who had not concluded a transfer and was sort of running around in the car park looking for something. On reflection, it was obviously about life stage and approaching the end of my working life. The next dream I wrote about, I entitled Armed Police. I dreamt I was on my way to a wedding, a passenger in a sports car that was speeding. The driver was driving as though he was on a racetrack and was tearing along, overtaking other drivers. I told him to slow down, and as I was telling him, we were overtaken by a police car driven by armed police, and we were guided to the side of the road and pulled over. The police exited their car with guns pointed at us, telling us to get out of our car. When we did, they shouted and asked if we had any bags. Nothing came of it, and we were allowed to carry on. On arriving at the wedding in Hambridge, Chester, everyone was dressed smartly as you would expect. And as we arrived, someone at the church or on the pavement was pointing a gun at the guests as they arrived. I got out of the car and the gun was pointed at me. I decided not to back down, but to confront him and get him to put the gun down. And I edged forward toward him, and he did put the gun down. When I reflected back, it's clear that death was starting to play a big part in these dreams. And I think the potential death element is a metaphor for my epilepsy, which I've been thinking about a lot as I try to get my life moving again. It's as though I'm confronting my epilepsy. Sudden unexplained death syndrome is not uncommon with epilepsy present. Also, I visited Hambridge on the day before the dream, and I watched Formula 1 racing on the TV also. The next dream I had, I called Time, Space and Infinity. I had an amazing dream, and I was in it with two other people who I now think are my sisters. But it could have been my son and my ex-wife. It was about being in space, and I can remember looking up at the night sky and seeing a belt of lights like spaceships and satellites. It was about reality, and the reality that time and space is infinite and that there is room for all of us. Again, it was about death and that sense that life is the preparation for it, and we have our physical selves and we leave that behind when we die, and our essence or our spirit moves off into infinity. And on reflection, I felt that God was speaking to me